Welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Stuff No One Told Us About Weight Loss. My name is Aaron and I'm here with Eloise, and today we are talking about avoidance in weight loss. Dun dun dun. Avoidance is quite an interesting topic, not just only with weight loss, but in life in general. But specifically what we're going to be talking about today is how that shows up for many people with regards to weight loss.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, we're doing certain things and we're not even realizing that we're actually avoiding the things we need to do subconsciously.
I am queen of avoidance, and that's why I can recognize it so quickly in our clients as well when they're avoiding things. I'm quick to pick it up because I have experienced it so often myself. And again, I, for many years, didn't know that that's what I was doing, but I certainly was avoiding. And it's still something I work on. If I'm being completely honest, it is still something I work on. But it's such an interesting topic because it is so common. It's something very simple that we can work on that's really going to make a difference for our results.
That's right. Quite simply, avoidance with regards to weight loss is trying to escape the thoughts we have about the reality. That's really all it is. And whether we're doing that consciously or unconsciously, this is something that often keeps a lot of people stuck.
Yeah, and it's interesting. As Aaron just said, avoidance is trying to escape the thoughts that we're having. And I think that that's something that most people don't recognize. We think that, we're avoiding the action, or we're avoiding the physical thing, like stepping on the scale. We're avoiding stepping on the scale because of the scale, right? But the truth is, we're avoiding the thoughts that we have about ourselves when we step on the scale.
Yeah.
So it always comes back to the thoughts.
The scale's a big one because for a lot of our clients, they will avoid stepping on the scale. And, sometimes they'll go as far as saying like, I just forgot, or, I had this and I had that. But really what they're doing is subconsciously they're avoiding doing it, because they're afraid of what the thoughts they're going to have when they see the number.
Yeah, and it's often that they avoid it when they feel like they're going to see a number they don't want to see.
Yeah.
You're not avoiding the scale when you think that you've done everything really well during the week.
That's right. You're almost excited. Like if you have done everything, down pat, like to the T, you are coming at it from a way different perspective than if you deep down know, hey, look, I really haven't been consistent this week. I haven't followed through with what I needed to do. Then you're going to dread it. So when it does come to the scale, and when it does come to, we're avoiding it, what we're actually doing in that moment is we're completely cutting off the chance for us to then feel bad because of the thoughts we have about it. So temporarily, if you think about it, your subconscious brain is finding all these other things at that particular time instead of getting on the scale, that it will feed you and say like, we just won't step on the scale because otherwise that's going to mean we're going to feel bad. So it's trying to prevent that from happening, and it's a protective mechanism.
Yeah.
So we're avoiding it because we're fearful of the thoughts we're going to have, and then therefore the feelings that are going to come after that.
Yeah, and it makes sense in terms of the way our brains work, where we move towards pleasure and away from pain. That's how, as humans, we're programmed to act. So if we think that stepping on the scale is going to be painful, then we're going to avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, avoidance is never helpful. Ever.
That's right.
Did I say never? It is never helpful. It does not help you move closer to your goals, even though maybe you think it does in the moment. What it does is it actively stops you from achieving your goals.
Yeah.
You are avoiding the chance to make progress. The scale is not bad in and of itself. What is bad are the shitty thoughts that you have about yourself and about the number. And so what we need to do is use these moments as opportunities to be able to work on our thoughts. And if we avoid stepping on the scale whenever we think the number's going to be higher, as we've said many times already, we're just cutting off that opportunity to actually make progress.
Yeah.
So you're like shooting yourself in the foot and basically saying, look, I don't feel like making progress this week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just avoid it.
That's right. And even what it's also doing, not always with stepping on the scale, but even avoiding like things like making sure we're just ticking off our habits.
avoiding journaling
for the week, or avoiding journaling. Like these sound, and we talk about thoughts all the time, and maybe if you've been listening to us for long enough, you know that we're very big on that. But if you're new, this might sound like it's sort of, you know, what the hell are we talking about here? But realistically, if we are not giving ourselves the chance to objectively look at ourselves and go, what am I thinking in the moment? Therefore, what am I feeling and what are my actions? We're not going to progress. Yeah. Avoiding it is literally just cutting that off completely and going like, I'm just going to try and, you know, wing it and hope for the best. Because we can't look back and go, this is the facts, this is what happened, because there's no data there.
Exactly. All that we have is this story that our brain has made up around what we think the terrible things are that are going to happen.
Yeah. All we're left with is really the feelings and the thoughts that we have as to whether we're successful or not. You know, if we are tracking towards a goal and we're not actually keeping track, how do we know if we've got there? How do we know if we need to make adjustments in one area? How do we know if we need to question certain thoughts when we step on the scale?
Yeah.
If we're not doing that work, if we're just avoiding it.
Yeah.
Right? We don't. We're just relying on the thoughts and the feelings, which can change at any moment. It's like playing the lottery with yourself.
Avoidance is very similar to something like emotional eating, because what we think is it's going to make us feel better when we avoid something. But the truth is, we don't feel better when we avoid doing the work, when we avoid stepping on the scale, when we avoid journaling. What happens is we're just momentarily distracted from feeling bad. And there is a big difference between feeling good and being distracted from feeling bad. When we're distracted from feeling bad, we're essentially opting out of life. We're saying, well, if we don't feel perfectly amazing all the time, and if we're not seeing all of the perfect things around us, then it's not good enough, and we basically should just opt out.
Yeah.
We shouldn't even try.
It's really short-term gratification at the sacrifice of making long-term gain.
And it's coming from perfectionism. At the very cause of it, it's that perfectionism of, well, if I'm not going to see something I want to see, I may as well not see anything. Yeah. And I should just hide instead.
Yeah.
But that never works.
No, that's right. And I think one of the big things and the big problems with avoidance is when it starts, even if it's something small, that then grows into, you know, a big tree or a big massive weed, because it trickles into everything else. If you let yourself off the hook with one thing and you go like, oh, I'll just not step on the scale because I don't want to see that it's maybe gone up.
Yeah.
Then that's going to happen with multiple things, because your brain starts to learn, hey, there might be a chance we might feel bad if we do this. So let's just not do it.
Because you never learn how to deal with those negative feelings and thoughts. And so you don't step on the scale this week, then a few days later you stop journaling, you stop ticking your habits off, and slowly you stop doing things, and then you stop seeing results.
Yeah.
And so what happens with this is, instead of practicing the skill of being able to deal with and work through your negative thoughts, and practicing the skills that are going to help you lose the weight and reach your goal life, you're instead practicing the skill of avoiding problems.
Yeah.
You're practicing the skill of avoiding your own mindset and your own thoughts. And so you're just really digging yourself into this hole that it's going to be 10 times harder to get out of afterwards.
That's right. And along with, getting better at avoiding, you get better at convincing yourself that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because your brain, as we've spoken about before, will find evidence to prove your identity correct. So if we dish ourselves up an excuse one time and say like, I didn't step on the scale because like I was really busy and I just didn't get any time.
And I'm pretty sure the number will be higher.
That's right. Our brain's going to learn like, oh, hey, if we're going to do that, we need to have this excuse so that we can justify to ourselves that it's a reasonable thing for us to do.
Exactly.
So it gets better. You're basically teaching it to do the wrong thing. And it gets better at doing that.
Yeah, and you get more and more convinced that that's the right thing to do. Which means you're more likely to then do that in the future, and so on.
Yeah. And what this looks like in a grand scheme of things is when you start to fall off the bandwagon, because a lot of the times it doesn't just happen overnight, it happens gradually. You'll stop one thing and then you'll go like, I don't feel like doing this. And we start to avoid another thing, and then we avoid another thing. And before we know it, we've just avoided doing everything altogether, and we go back to the start.
And then we wonder, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And the answer is you got there from these tiny little decisions.
That's right.
These tiny moments where you opted out of dealing with your discomfort.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. When it comes down to it, avoidance is you making decisions from a place of fear. And it's that fear of discomfort, fear of our own thoughts, fear of our negative self-talk. And the crazy thing is, you're in control of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not fearing these external things. You're fearing your own mind.
Yeah.
And you're able to change that.
That's right. And I think like knowing that in itself is scary for a lot of people.
It's scary, but it's also so empowering. That's the way that I've seen it as well. Like, again, being queen of avoidance.
That's right. And
this was a big mind-blowing moment for me when I learnt this.
Yeah. It takes time to get comfortable with knowing that you're in control of the choices you make. You're in control of the things that you do, you think, and really sort of learning to not judge yourself, because that's where the problem starts. Is if we judge ourselves based on, I'm avoiding something, therefore I must be bad. Like, we need to just get curious. Yeah. At the end of the day, we want to be really curious about ourselves.
Yeah.
Talk to yourself like you would a friend.
Exactly.
Like if you noticed your friend started doing weird things and avoiding, all right, let's say, for example, a friend starts avoiding you, right? They're not returning your calls and they're not at the house when you go to see them. What's the first thing you think? You think, well, something's up. I need to check in and see if they're okay. That they're acting differently. We want that same situation with ourselves. If we start to avoid little things, like, and we catch those, go like, what's going on? Like, what am I thinking here? Why am I doing these things differently to what I really want to be doing?
Yeah. Always curiosity over judgment. It's the only way to make progress, especially when it comes to weight loss. And the thing that you really want to do is, for example, if we're using the scale as an example and you're sitting there, you're thinking, it's weigh-in day, I really feel like I've gained weight this week, I don't want to step on the scale. Instead of just going, oh, look, I'm not going to step on the scale because I just can't face it today. I just can't deal with that number. Instead, what you want to do is you want to go, well, okay, what did my week look like? What did I do this week? What actions did I take this week that has led me to this position right now? If I lived this week again next week, what would I want to do differently?
Yeah.
And if you approach it from that position and you go, okay, and this is the way you might have heard me talking about the way that I personally weigh in. And the way that I do it is I look at the week that's just gone and I go, okay, what did I do well? What did I maybe not do so well? And what do I want to improve on this week? What are the actions I'm going to focus on this week? I do all of that before I step on the scale. So I have a full action plan for my week ahead that has nothing to do with the number on the scale. And I fill out my journal, my entire journal, about my thoughts about how the week has gone and my thoughts about my progress before I've stepped on the scale. So after I fill this entire sheet out and I have a thought in my mind about my progress and the way I showed up this week, then I step on the scale. And I step on the scale from the position of already knowing how I feel about my progress. So the number then has no pull on my life whatsoever. It is just a piece of data. I then fill that number out on the journal sheet just as that piece of data for the week to show me, okay, these actions this week led to this number. No matter what the number says, I keep my goals and my action plan for the following week. So if I've decided I'm going to do X, Y, Z actions next week, I'm really proud of the way I showed up this week, and the number is higher, I don't change my plan. I continue with the plan I set for myself, because what matters at the end of the day is the way that you show up, the way that you deal with your thoughts. If I had avoided that whole process and gone, well, I'm not going to step on the scale because I'm not really happy with how the week went, I'm just going to try again next week, I've missed that entire opportunity to go, well, how did my week go? How do I feel about myself after I step on the scale? How can I make the scale mean absolutely nothing in the course of my life?
Well, that's exactly right. And we want to start changing the story that we're telling ourselves and the story of what's really going on. And guys, if you've listened to us before, you know we're big proponents of journaling. You know, we love to use journaling to do this work, because at the end of the day, once we can write it down, we can see it, it's objective. We can then look at it and go, all right, what do I notice? What are the patterns I'm seeing here?
Yeah.
And, you know, something to look at doing is journaling about why you're avoiding the situation.
What are you afraid of?
Exactly. Why are you afraid of this certain thing? Like, what is it a reflection of? You know, are we afraid of getting on the scale because deep down we know we really didn't do much this week? We weren't consistent.
Exactly. And do you think that not stepping on the scale because you didn't show up is actually going to help you move forward? When you write that down on a piece of paper, it starts to sound pretty silly.
Yeah. In essence, really, avoiding it is taking that 2 steps backwards. It feels comfortable at the time, because it's like, well, hey, if I just don't do this thing, I'm not going to feel any different. Yeah. But all we're really doing is taking 2 steps back, because we're going to have to come to terms with that work at some stage. It's going to show up later on. Exactly.
And the crazy thing is, the number's not going to change because you didn't step on the scale.
Yeah.
The number on the scale is a fact in the world. So just because you don't step on the scale doesn't mean you no longer weigh that number.
That's right. And, you know, you might even surprise yourself. You might think all of these things and be fearful and actually get on, and it's completely the opposite.
Often, exactly.
To what you thought it was going to be. You know, you might get on there and you go like, oh, hang on, what the hell? I'm a kilo down.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a rough week. It was tough, but hey, you know, that's the fact of the matter. If we're avoiding it, we're cutting off that chance.
Yeah. So after you journal about why you avoided the situation and why that's not helpful, you then want to journal about why facing the situation and being courageous is the desirable option here. And a few reasons why this is the desirable option and why avoiding is not the desirable option is that when you face the thing, so when you step on the scale, even though you're a bit worried about what the number's going to be, you're getting that opportunity to learn and grow and improve. You're then also going to be much closer to reaching your goals because you're getting that opportunity to learn. You're learning how to deal with discomfort and how to reframe your thoughts. You're learning how to build a relationship with the scale and with yourself. And you're building that trust and confidence that you can handle discomfort and you can handle anything. If you always avoid things, what you're doing is you're teaching yourself that you aren't strong enough to deal with those thoughts and feelings. And what kind of message is that sending you?
That's right.
It's sending you the message that you can't handle life.
That's right. You're teaching yourself to do the things that are actively holding you back.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story, and like hopefully the take-home message that you got from this is, we want to, again, get really curious about our actions and our thoughts, and really start to get curious about if we notice ourselves avoiding things, jump on that. Go like, why am I doing this?
Yep.
Don't judge yourself about what you think the scale is going to mean about you. You know, it's just a piece of data. We want to still be making sure that we're giving ourselves that opportunity to get a learning from that experience.
Exactly. And focusing on what you can control. You can't control the number on the scale, but you can control how you choose to show up this week.
Yeah. So guys, we covered quite a lot in today's episode. Hopefully this was really helpful and you got some great takeaways from this episode. Remember, avoidance is not your friend. It's actively pulling you in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
The opposite way. So thank you so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.